You can always tell when someone is having free school meals because they hold up the queue and have their lunch card inspected.
My first language is Spanish. To translate my assignment told me to go to an online dictionary website, and it didn't work on my old computer, so I got detention for not doing my work.
I had to do homework on the computer, and the teacher started shouting at me because I didn't do it. I kept telling them that I didn't have a computer at home.
Hi, my name is Jen Negron.
I'm Parker Lacey.
I'm Chloe Getting.
I'm Gabby Urdaneta.
I'm Mia Morgan.
Our question was, to what extent does income inequality impact academic attainment on minority students in Florida? We answered that question with the statement, income inequality has a negative impact on minority students in Florida.
Our solution to this problem is investing more money into these minority schools, having high-quality educators to low-quality minority schools, and providing more academic-based scholarship opportunities to minorities. A major problem, our main problem is that there's income inequality in these schools, and these are mainly affecting minorities. For example, African Americans, and ours is specifically on Florida, and here it shows that Florida is actually one of the lowest for graduation rate for African American students. It's showing that it has a negative impact on students later in life, not only during their academic years, but also after, by showing how black men, specifically in Florida, are making around $17,000 or less compared to white men, which is roughly maybe $25,000. This just shows how even like how the inequality based off state still has a larger impact on it has a larger impact more than the actual education, because here it'll show that there's even people with like really high education in low inequality states. It's still worse here where there's people in high inequality states.
As a result of this, academic and sports participation as well as scholarship opportunities becomes a very important factor in the minds of low-income families. In a recent experiment, parents varying from low, middle, and high-income classes were asked to indicate how important athletic participation is towards their child's education and how much of a concern costs and related problems are. Obtaining a college athletic scholarship was important for 26% of low-income students as compared to 8% of high-income students. And being able to afford these costs was more of a concern for 41% of low-income students as compared to 16% of high-income students. This creates that continuous cycle of less and less athletic participation coming from these students, which prevents them from being able to obtain a scholarship that can further education. With the more and more studies that come out regarding the relationship between socioeconomic status and participation, more and more disparities are shown between the two. With the possibility of more academic-based scholarships being given out to these students, there could be more doors that are opened up to these students to be able to get the education that they deserve. And however, this can't be done without their participation, which is declining. Scholarship aid and scholarship opportunities is a very important tool that low-income families use to get their children worthy educations. Looking specifically at the red bar graph, families that have from $70,000 to more than $100,000 in yearly income should not be getting financial aid anywhere close to families that have less than $40,000 in yearly income, let alone within just $500 of each other. If we want to really support these children and getting the education that they should already be given, we need to focus more on distributing these scholarships with equity.
Shown is the relationship between SAT scores and household income with the families. So on the red side, it would be showing the reading scores, and the green side would be showing the math. As we can see, the bars go up, the household parental income goes up, showing the scores would be higher based on their household income. Presented is the comparison of low-income students to the total number of students at the school, showing that the total number of students averages a higher score in English, reading, mathematics, science, and all four subjects combined compared to just the low-income students. we have two different charts, one showing income and SAT for low-income homes, and one showing income and SAT scores for high-income communities. On this side, it's shown that with lower income communities comes lower SAT scores, and higher income communities comes higher SAT scores.
Community is extremely important towards understanding children's academic attainment, and in melting pot states like Florida specifically, that needs to be looked at even more. As the United States Government Association Office cites in this graph, the South has the most even distribution between white, Hispanic, and Black children in public schools, but we also have the highest percentage of schools with over 75% African American population. Now, the GAO also examines the prevalence of segregation in public schools and finds that in the past, discriminatory practices have fostered long-lasting inequities. Now, even if communities these kids are living in are more racially diverse, if the child themselves is a minority student, they are still more likely to be exposed towards low-income folks. This means that this can be attributed to a myriad of factors, from property taxes to politicians looking for votes and gerrymandering districts. But at the end of the day, the children are still facing the brunt of these effects, and that is hurting these low-income students. For instance, a study conducted by gradeschools.org finds that when analyzing standardized testing scores in English, math, and science, they found that 83% of white students and 92% of Asian students go to schools where the test score rating is above a 7, whereas only 9% of Black students and 14% of Hispanic students attend this sort of school.
To be more specific on a test score, specifically the SAT, as you can see here, that minority races are more likely to score below the average or just worse compared to Asian and white students. And this is because of their community, the way their community has pushed them and influenced them, is how, that's just, the way their community has pushed them it reflects on their scores. This talks about the same thing, being that white and Asian score better than specifically Black and Latinos, and this is very important in a state like Florida, where we are mostly Black and Latino. Like, that's a huge population of Florida. And this graph is very credible because this is over a large population of students. So this shows that this is normal. This is not something that just happened one year. And to go back to the beginning of education, elementary schools, specifically in elementary school here in OCPS West Oaks, which is predominantly Black, only 24% of students went back to campus after the COVID launch ed. Only 24% of the students went back face to face. When you look here compared to other schools that were mostly white schools or just schools that had more white students, the white students were more likely to go back to school than the Blacks were. And this is because of the way their focus in their community has been different. And the schools haven't done enough to push the minorities to be equal. And if you start off your education bad, like in elementary school, then that sets a precedent for the rest of your education in your life.
After analyzing all these different categories of how academic attainment can be impacted, especially in minority groups, we found that we can solve this by investing more money in low-quality schools, having high-quality educators come and encourage minorities in low-quality schools, and providing more scholarship opportunities to minorities even outside of athletics. Now, we do have to look at where that money is going to come from, why high-quality educators might not want to waste their time on these low-quality students, and how we are going to get the money for university scholarships. Thank you.
Guys, just come together so I can ask you questions. Don't come up, because you'll back up. All right, that's good, that's good. You don't need to be silly. Okay, I'll start over with Parker and work my way across. Parker, if you had a sixth member of this group, what perspective could they bring to this that would add to your presentation?
They could have brought in the topic of religion and how that can affect their scores achieved in school.
Okay. Let's go over to Chloe, just to freak everyone out. Chloe, describe an argument from one of your peers' research that makes you think differently about the solution that you came up with.
Okay. I think Jan was talking about how. Actually, here, repeat the question, please.
Yeah. Describe an argument from one of their research that makes you think differently about the solution you came up with as a group.
Okay. So Parker was talking about, sorry, placement of the schools and how their resources and low quality affects the students, and that sort of goes into my like athletics and sort of how their academic based scholarships might not be as good as it should be.
All right, thank you. Mia, you're up. Thinking about the work that everyone else did, which one had the greatest impact on your understanding of this topic?
I think the thing that had the biggest impact on my understanding of the topic was probably athletics aspect, just because it provides something about scholarship. Even though it does talk about inequality, I think athletics had a major impact on inequality and scholarships. And even though it may not seem like directly one of the biggest impacts, I think it has a lot to do with what people do outside of high school and college.
Okay. Yeah, we'll ask you now. What is the way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about the research that you did?
All right, so I focused a little bit more on policy and what specifically caused all these inequalities, right? So a lot of them focused on other ways to solve the inequalities that are happening in Florida. So we touched a little bit on giving different scholarship opportunities, whether that be by private entities and not just the public sector. So it's not all about policy. We can also solve these problems on a different scale.
Okay, and save the best for last. Jan, was there any piece of information that you guys collected but you didn't use in the presentation, and if so, why?
Yeah, Chloe's was more like, it was athletics, but it was more like to do with the interaction of students and how their background racially like changes how they're interacted and how they're treated and stuff like that. And we thought that was a little bit too specific for what we were going for, and that it was gonna kind of detract from the main thing, which has to do more about income and just like a larger scale than like the actual student, I guess.